I submitted my PTO request at 8:12 a.m. Monday, June 7th, 3 days off, August 4th to 6th. The system replied instantly, in the same neutral tone it used for birthdays and terminations alike. Request received, pending approval. 28 days passed. No response. Then, at 8:03 a.m. on a Monday, an email arrived with a single word. Denied. No explanation, no justification. Just the quiet finality of a button clicked by someone who'd already moved on to the next task. 2 days later, I got sick. Fever, 101.3 degree have, at 6:57 a.m. I sent an out sick message to Derek, my manager, and HR. By 3:14 p.m., HR replied, unapproved absence, 1 day deducted for lack of coordination during critical period. That was the moment I realized. The company didn't reject time. It rejected boundaries. I didn't reply. I just opened the employee handbook, flipped to section 4.2, PTO approval and denial standards, and left my pen resting on the page. On the wall in front of me hung the PTO calendar. I drew a thick black line through those 3 August days. Not to erase them, but to mark the space where fairness should have been honored. They call it hustle. I'll call it debt. The hum of the office vents filled the silence. A silver paperclip caught the light beside my keyboard. That was where I began the list. My name is Owen Brooks, 45, operations manager at a mid-sized tech firm in downtown Chicago. 11 years in the same office, same glass walls, same badge that flashes green every morning. I don't hate pressure. I hate how pressure is rebranded as loyalty. May 2022. We lost a major enterprise client due to a failed rollout. I worked 3 weekends in a row, totaling 28 overtime hours. No mention of compensatory PTO. February 2023. A misconfigured failover in the production cluster caused a system halt. I stayed until 1:40 a.m., manually correcting 17 lines in the YAML config. The next morning, our Slack channel praised Jason for driving the fix. I was tagged silently. I didn't respond. Q4 2023, our team's SLA stood at 99.7%, the highest in our division. Employee of the month went to Mara, a newer hire. I nodded, then filled my timesheet. 0 PTO used. In 18 months, I logged 146 overtime hours and 17 weekend days. I didn't ask for recognition. I kept records. The office was a glass aquarium, efficient, quiet, and always watching itself. Every Monday began with a stand-up meeting that wasn't about standing up for anything. Everyone used the same recycled phrases: visibility, alignment, getting buy-in. No one said what they meant. No one meant what they said. If you paused for too long after someone's sentence, you could almost hear the silence get nervous. Sometimes I imagined what the building looked like from the river. 40 floors of quiet compliance glowing in soft blue light, each window holding someone convincing themselves they were indispensable. The conference room 3B had one glass wall facing Wacker Drive. Outside, the Chicago River shimmered under the morning glare. Inside, Derek slid his laptop across the table and said, "Q3's going to be heavy. Your vacation falls right in the middle of migration. Not ideal timing." I looked at him, then the project dashboard behind him. "All critical events are scheduled to conclude by July 30th, I said. I submitted the request 28 days ahead. Section 4.2 requires any denial to specify a critical operational event and an alternative. Coverage plan." He smiled. That managerial smile that meant nothing but hierarchy. Company needs you. That's not a reason. That's a slogan. The clock behind him read 9:42 a.m. Somewhere, a printer hummed. Someone poured coffee. Normal sounds of productivity, but something shifted. A small fracture. Invisible but permanent. The following week, A message appeared in the Akarop's announcements channel. Let's push through Q3 together. PTO optional. People reacted with the emoji. Muscles, as if exhaustion were proof of character, as if unpaid hours were a kind of patriotism. Respect isn't a perk, it's policy. That night I stood in the elevator, watching the numbers descend. The mirrored walls caught my reflection. Shirt slightly wrinkled, tie loosened, expression blank. I thought about the word optional. It never applies to the ones who already do the work. It applies to the ones who confuse endurance with security. In my first year at the company, I used to believe visibility was safety, that if you worked hard enough, stayed late enough, made yourself too useful to replace, they'd protect you when things turned cold. Back then, I didn't keep notes, I didn't save emails. I thought merit was memory. Then one day, in a quarterly review, my project report appeared on screen, but someone else's name was in the header. No one corrected it. Derek clapped for collaboration. And that's when I learned. In corporate ecosystems, silence is not absence. It's strategy. The fever broke at 101.3 degrees on a Wednesday night. The light from my work laptop blinked in the dark. A small, sterile eye waiting for movement. I shut it at 6:57 a.m. I sent another out sick message attaching a note from the clinic. At 3:16 p.m., HR replied, "Unapproved absence. Deduction will be applied." The tone was so precise it almost sounded polite. Inside my desk drawer sat a small pile of receipts: cough medicine, takeout, parking after hours. Not for reimbursement, for record. Because when loyalty starts being priced by convenience, the only thing that still holds value is evidence. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, laptop open, one light on, no music, no noise, just the steady hum of the fridge and my own quiet pulse. I opened my work inbox. Searched for every email related to PTO in the last 30 days. Then I pressed Command+Shift+4 and began capturing screenshots, timestamps, headers, system alerts. Next, I opened the Employee Handbook, PDF, version date 01/01/2025, scrolled to section 4.2, PTO, Approval and Denial Standards. 1. Employee must submit request, SIU 14 calendar days before PTO, ICR 2. Manager must respond, approve, or deny within 7 business days. Any denial must include critical operational event and replacement plan, or sick leave with verified documentation cannot be labeled. Unapproved absence. I highlighted all 4. Then I stopped. Didn't feel angry. I didn't feel anything. I just started counting. Silence is where precision grows. Plans built from anger fall apart. Plans built from data don't. I started with a 4-step. Outline, plain, measurable, unemotional. Step 1. Gather the evidence. Step 2. Write the email. Step 3. Choose the moment. Step 4. Prepare the surface. Simple. Predictable. Controlled. Before I began, I opened my notebook, not the company-issued one. The real one I kept at home. The first page was dated 2016, from a time when I still believed leadership was integrity, not optics. The handwriting was looser then. There was a note written in the margin: "Never escalate. Build bridges." I looked at it for a long time. Then, without crossing it out, I wrote below it: "Bridges only work when both sides stand." That Friday, I went back to the office. The sky over Wacker Drive was gray, the kind of light that flattens everything. Inside, the building buzzed with false energy, people walking faster than necessary, as if speed could hide inertia. A new HR poster had appeared by the elevator. Wellness is balance. The irony almost made me smile. Almost. The following Monday, I arrived at the office earlier than usual, 7:42 a.m. The floor lights were still dim, and the air carried that quiet chill before productivity begins. I placed my coffee on the desk, opened my laptop, and wrote the email. No drafts, no hesitations. Subject line: Formal escalation, PTO policy non-compliance. I attached 6 screenshots, a PDF excerpt of Section 4.2, and the timestamp of my original request. The message was addressed to HR Compliance, Derek, VP of Operations, and CC'd to myself. It was short, factual, and polite. The kind of email that makes everyone uncomfortable because it's too calm. Dear HR and Management, per Employee Handbook Section 4.2, the response time for PTO approval is 7 business days. My request was submitted on June 7th and denied 28 days later without required justification. The subsequent unapproved absence also conflicts with Section 4.2.4 regarding verified medical documentation. Please confirm the correction of the deduction and update my PTO status to reflect compliance with the stated policy. Regards, Owen Brooks, Operations Manager. I read it twice, then sent it at 8:01 a.m. The notification ping echoed through the quiet floor, a small, precise sound of impact. Then nothing. Corporate silence isn't empty. It's measured. It arrives in intervals: 15 minutes, 3 hours, 1 day, each pause filled with invisible typing indicators and private threads. Somewhere, someone would read the email, forward it to someone else with a single line. Can we confirm? Then the real conversations would happen, off-channel where accountability dissolves. I wasn't in a hurry. Bureaucracy eats speed. It respects persistence. At 10:26 a.m., I saw the read receipts populate. HR viewed the attachment. Derek opened it from his phone. The VP didn't open it yet. I minimized the window and went back to my task list. 2 system maintenance tickets, 1 vendor report, a budget spreadsheet. My day continued as if nothing had happened, except for the shift in air pressure that follows a sound no one acknowledges. At 4:48 p.m., the first reply came from Carol, HR business partner. Hi Owen, thank you for raising this. We'll review the matter internally and follow up. Please note that all PTO policies are subject to operational priorities at management discretion. Regards, Carol. Operational priorities, a phrase that cancels fairness with style. He archived the message. Then I started logging the timestamps. At the company, there was a compliance portal, an internal workflow system built for audits. Most employees didn't know how to access it. I did. My role in operations gave me partial visibility to the back end. I tracked my case as it moved across departments. The system labeled it Status, Opened. Owner, HR Business Partner, Carol Simmons. Response, Pending. For 72 hours, the file stayed there. Opened. Pending. Staring back. By Wednesday, people had started to notice. Not openly, not in words, but in the rhythm of how they looked at me. Conversations paused slightly when I walked past. Slack threads slowed down after my comments. It wasn't hostility, it was tension, the kind of invisible static that hums when someone disturbs a system that prefers sleep. During the Thursday stand-up, Derek avoided eye contact. He talked through metrics, migration deadlines, system uptime. His voice was crisp, rehearsed. But when he said, "We're doing great as a team," his eyes flicked to me, just long enough to admit he knew that wasn't true. After the meeting, he asked me to stay back. "Owen," he said, closing his laptop with both hands like sealing a file. "Look, this whole PTO thing, I get it. But you could have come to me directly." "I did," I said. 28 days ago," he sighed. "These things get political fast. HR hates when things look procedural. Makes them feel audited. I didn't audit them," I said. "I cited their own policy." He smiled, that slow, managerial kind of smile that hides irritation under empathy. "Just remember," he said, "perception matters more than process sometimes." I looked at him. "Only for people who have something to hide." He didn't reply. That evening, I stayed late. Not to work, to watch. The office at night is honest. Without the buzz of conversation, the space stops pretending. Rows of desks lined up like empty confession booths, monitor lights blinking like slow heartbeats. On the wall behind the copy machine, a new poster read, "We're all in this together." Below it, a maintenance sticker, "Replace toner cartridge by 7/31. Even the printer had a deadline for fairness. I logged into the compliance portal again. The case now showed, "Under review, Level 2. That meant escalation. That meant they were looking for who made the error, not if one existed. The irony, I wasn't seeking revenge. I was testing the system that claimed to be fair. If it worked, I'd rest. If it didn't, I'd let it expose itself. The next morning, the air in the building felt different, tighter, controlled. At 9:17 a.m., HR sent a calendar invite titled PTO Clarification Discussion. Location, Room 5C. Duration, 30 minutes. Attendees, Owen Brooks, Carol Simmons, Derek L., Compliance Analyst, TBD. I accepted. At 2:00 p.m., I walked into 5C. Carol was already there, expression fixed in that HR neutrality, soft smile, eyes sharp. Derek sat beside her, arms crossed. Across the table was a man in a gray suit, badge labeled Compliance. He didn't look up from his laptop. "Thanks for joining, Owen," Carol began. "We just wanted to clarify some aspects of the PTO request." "Sure," I said. "Let's clarify." She clicked the trackpad, projecting my email onto the wall screen. Lines of text reflected off the glass table. Carol continued. "While Section 4.2 does mention a 7-day window, it also allows for exceptions during critical periods, which migration qualifies as." "Then the policy requires a written justification," I said. "That part wasn't included." She nodded slightly. "That's correct. It seems there was a miscommunication." The man from compliance spoke for the first time. "Mr. Brooks, do you feel your PTO denial was handled unfairly, or are you seeking confirmation of process adherence?" "Both," I thought. Out loud I said, "I'm seeking accuracy." He typed something, probably checking a box labeled Employee Concern. Procedural. Derek leaned forward. "Look, we can fix this." "Let's move on," I looked at him. "Move on means forget. Fix means correct," Carol interjected. "We'll review the absence deduction as well. You'll be notified once the update is processed." That was it. 30 minutes condensed into 4 sentences of corporate absolution. But I could tell something else had shifted. The words were recorded. The system had acknowledged itself. When the meeting ended, I thanked them, and meant it. Because acknowledgement in any form is a kind of truth. That weekend, I stayed home. No work laptop. No notifications. Just quiet. Saturday morning, I walked to the corner cafe, the one with the blue chairs and the bad jazz playlist. I sat by the window, notebook open, pen resting on the page. Outside, people moved with purpose. Grocery bags, strollers, phones pressed to ears. Inside, everything slowed down. For the first time in years, I realized I didn't know what to do when I wasn't working. I used to think discipline was a virtue. Now it felt like a cage built politely. I flipped back to the first page of the notebook. 16. My handwriting was younger, rounder, confident. I'd written a line from a management seminar. Hard work will always speak for itself. I underlined it now. Twice. Then I wrote below it, "Only if someone's willing to listen." Monday, 8:02 a.m. The first email of the day came from Carol. "Hi Owen, thank you for your patience. After reviewing the case, the deduction has been corrected and your PTO balance updated. We apologize for the oversight. Regards, Carol Simmons, HR Business Partner. No mention of accountability. No signature of regret. Just correction, wrapped in neutrality. I read it once, then archived it, but 20 minutes later, something else happened. A message appeared in the company-wide Slack channel Hashkerchik Announcements. Reminder, PTO requests must follow Section 4.2 of the Employee Handbook. Please ensure all responses are provided within 7 business days. Thank you for your cooperation. No one mentioned me. They didn't need to. The policy had spoken louder than the name. I watched the emoji reactions appear, each one a digital exhale from people who didn't even know what had changed, only that something suddenly felt possible again. I minimized the window, took a sip of coffee, and opened my task list. 14 items. Deadlines, vendor calls, reports. Same as before, but not quite. At lunch, I went down to the atrium. Derek was there talking to Jason and Mara. He looked up, saw me, nodded slightly. "Hey, Owen," he said, tone careful. "Good to have you back." "I never left," I said. He chuckled nervously. "Yeah, I guess not." For the first time, his laugh didn't sound like authority. It sounded like habit. I didn't stay long. The cafeteria hummed with the low murmur of small victories, people joking about meetings, coffee, deadlines. Everything normal, and yet, under it all, I felt something invisible shift. The kind of shift that happens when one rule starts being read again. That night, I walked along Wacker Drive. The river reflected the office lights, each window a pixel of somebody's ambition. From outside, the building looked perfect. Inside, it was just full of people pretending fairness was functional. But tonight, for the first time, it was. The handbook wasn't a shield. It was a mirror, and sometimes holding up a mirror is enough. 3 weeks passed. No one talked about the meeting. That's how silence works here. It doesn't erase things, it just reclassifies them. The company moved on, at least on the surface. But systems remember, even when people don't. HR updated the internal wiki, adding a new bullet under Section 4.2. Managers are expected to provide written rationale for all PTO denials. They never announced why the rule was clarified or whose case prompted it. It just appeared like a patch note in a software update, invisible to most, critical to the few who paid attention. The week after, an all-hands email came from HR Communications. Introducing a new initiative, Fairness in Action, building a culture of accountability. It linked to a mandatory training session, a 30-minute e-learning module with quiz questions and stock photos of smiling coworkers. I watched the announcement spread across Slack. People reacted with sarcasm, emojis, eye rolls. The same ones who once said PTO optional now joked about PTO justice. Corporate irony always arrives after risk has passed. I didn't join the jokes. I just closed the notification window and opened my calendar. I had 3 unused days remaining. One afternoon, while I was reviewing a vendor contract, a new hire stopped by my desk. She couldn't have been older than 26. Badge still stiff, smile still full of optimism. Her name tag read, Elena, Operations Associate. She hesitated before speaking as if asking a question carried risk. "Mr. Brooks," she said. "I heard. You got HR to change something?" I looked up. "You heard wrong. HR corrected something," she nodded, unsure. "Still, that's kind of amazing," I shrugged. "It shouldn't be," she smiled faintly. "How did you even do it?" For a second, I almost gave the long answer, about rules, timing, evidence, and silence. Instead, I said, "Read the handbook. It's the only book they're afraid of." She laughed a little uncertainly, but wrote it down in her notebook like advice. The days after that blurred into quiet normalcy. Meetings resumed, projects moved forward, people talked about deadlines and deliverables, but I noticed small, invisible changes. How HR now replied faster to time-off requests, how Derek copied me on policy-related threads, how no one joked about optional PTO anymore. Fairness doesn't shout. It lingers. Still, the victory didn't feel like celebration. It felt like calibration, a machine correcting its own tilt. Late evenings became routine again. The office dim, air conditioning humming softly, monitors flickering across empty desks. I liked those hours. They were honest. Without voices, the building's architecture became visible again. Order without conversation. Sometimes I'd look out from the glass wall of 3B and see my own reflection against the skyline. The city lights pulsed like circuitry. Human ambition turned into geometry. In the glass, I looked both present and transparent, a silhouette with a badge. I thought about the early years again, the late nights, the belief that loyalty was protection. Back then, I didn't understand that silence could be power if you decided when to break it. I used to think control meant being indispensable. Now, I knew control meant being replaceable, and still unshaken. The next compliance audit came quietly. An email from Policy Review, Internal Ops. Subject, Acknowledgement of Policy Adherence. It was addressed to me, CC'd to Derek and HR. No body text, just a checkbox. This case confirms employee escalation aligned with corporate compliance standards. I clicked Acknowledge. That was their version of an apology. I accepted it. At 6:15 p.m., I packed my things. The office was empty except for the faint glow of the screensavers. On Derek's desk, I noticed a moving box, half filled with folders and pens. A nameplate wrapped in bubble wrap. Transfers happen quietly here, like weather. Later that night, an internal memo went out. Effective immediately, Derek L. will transition to a regional coordination role. Please join us in thanking him for his leadership. That was all it said. No reason, no story, but everyone in the building knew there's only one kind of transition that starts without a replacement named. I didn't react. Just marked the email as read. Corporate justice never looks dramatic. It's quiet, procedural, disguised as reorganization. The following Friday, we had a town hall meeting. The VP of Operations gave a speech about process integrity and learning from oversight. He used the word accountability 5 times. When the Q&A opened, no one raised a hand. Then, after a pause, someone in the back, I didn't see who, asked, "Does accountability apply to leadership too?" The room went still. The VP smiled. Corporate perfect. "Of course," he said, but his pause before answering lasted exactly 3 seconds, long enough to sound like honesty, short enough to stay safe. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. In the days that followed, work felt lighter, not easier, just more balanced. People said hello in the hallways again. Someone brought donuts on Monday, something no one had done in months. It wasn't about sugar. It was about signal. The building felt slightly more human and slightly less afraid. Weeks later, I found myself staying late again, not out of obligation, out of habit. The office at night had become a kind of meditation. The hum of machines, the low rhythm of ventilation, the soft reflection of screensaver light, they formed a language I understood better than most conversations. I opened the compliance portal one last time. My case was archived now. Status resolved. I clicked View Details. The log showed every timestamp, every action, every handoff, every correction, a perfect record of something imperfect becoming fair again. I exported the file to PDF, named it Resolution 042, and saved it in a folder called Personal Integrity, not for proof, for memory. On my way out, I stopped by the break room. The lights were off, but the vending machine glowed in the corner. Inside, a bag of pretzels hung halfway down the coil, stuck between motion and rest. I watched it for a moment, then tapped the glass lightly. It didn't fall. Some things stay suspended waiting for gravity or courage. Outside, the city was colder than usual. Wacker Drive shimmered with reflected neon. The same river I'd watched every morning now looked like a data stream. Endless. Quiet, indifferent. I walked along the railing, coat zipped, briefcase in hand, across the street. Through the office windows I could see the HR floor still lit. Someone was working late, maybe fixing another rule, maybe breaking one. That's how systems evolve, not from intention, but from interruption. I passed the lobby window and saw my reflection again. Same suit, same face, maybe slightly older, but the expression had changed. It wasn't bitterness, it was stillness. When I reached my car, I paused. The glove compartment was slightly open. Inside was the steel pen I'd bought during my days off. The same one I'd used to underline Section 4.2, I picked it up. It felt heavier than I remembered, as if it had absorbed the weight of time. There was a thin scratch along its side. Honest, permanent. I clicked it once. The sound was small but absolute. Steel doesn't shout. It just lasts. Monday morning came again. Same badge, same desk, same login screen. The office smelled of coffee and printer ink. But on the wall where the PTO calendar used to hang, the HR team had replaced it with a new printout. Fairness is the foundation of trust. No one mentioned who put it there, but every time I looked at it, I saw the thin black line I'd drawn through those August days. It wasn't anger, it was symmetry. I stayed late that night one last time. The office lights dimmed in layers as motion sensors expired one by one, until only my corner remained lit. I closed the last open window on my screen, stacked the papers neatly, and turned off the monitor. The sound of the building settling filled the air. Distant clicks, quiet air shifts, the hum of something still alive under stillness. On my desk, the steel pen rested beside my notebook. I flipped to a new page. No dates, no section numbers this time. Just a line. Precision is the quietest form of justice. I capped the pen. Monday, August 4th, the day that once started everything, was coming again. This time, I took it off, approved. I didn't go far, just north, by the lake. The sky was open, the wind calm. I left my phone off. For the first time in years, the silence didn't sound like control. It sounded like peace. That was my story, where dignity didn't need to shout to win. If you believe in quiet justice, like the video and subscribe to the Office Revenge Diaries, where every story ends with dignity restored.